You ever get that feeling in your gut that something isn't right, but everyone around you makes you feel like you're overreacting? That was me 3 months ago, sitting across from my father in his massive mahogany office while he talked about family legacy and quietly dropped the biggest betrayal of my life. My name's Derek. I'm 29. For the past 7 years, I've worked alongside my dad at our family business, a mid-sized logistics company he built from scratch. It wasn't flashy, but it was stable. Reliable clients, strong contracts, and a loyal team who'd been around since before I even knew what a shipping manifest was. Dad was proud of that company, and I was proud to help him run it. I started at the bottom, hauling boxes, driving overnight runs, and answering 2 a.m. phone calls when drivers missed checkpoints. Over time, I earned more trust. I moved from handling accounts to logistics planning, then into management. For the last 2 years, I was basically running the place. Payroll, clients, fleet upgrades, you name it. Dad had stepped back, showing up less often, letting me handle meetings and decisions. He'd nod during presentations, proud, like he was watching his legacy take shape. I thought I was next in line, his partner, maybe even his successor. Turns out, I was just keeping the seat warm. The first red flag came one Monday morning. Dad asked me to come in early, not unusual during busy seasons. But this time, his tone was different. Calm, rehearsed. When I walked into his office, coffee in hand, he was already seated, posture stiff, hands folded on the desk. Across from him sat my younger brother Jason, 23, newly graduated, and more into cryptocurrency and influencer marketing than logistics. Derek, Dad began, motioning for me to sit. We've been thinking about the future. I glanced at Jason, who gave me his usual half smirk, the same one he used when he forgot my birthday and brushed it off with an excuse. I want you to start training Jason, Dad continued. Teach him the systems, accounts, and client relationships. Eventually, he'll handle operations while you focus more on strategy. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard right. Take over operations? You mean my role? Dad leaned back. Yes, eventually you'll see the bigger picture. Less hands-on. It's a natural progression, Jason grinned. Don't worry, bro. I'll get the hang of it. Just need a crash course. I should have said something then, but I didn't. I smiled, nodded, played the good son, and walked out with my stomach in knots. Over the next few days, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe Dad meant something else. But the truth became clearer. Jason wasn't learning. He was replacing me. I was being pushed aside into some vague strategy role that didn't even exist. Meanwhile, Jason strutted around the office like he owned it, asking interns where we kept energy drinks and showing off his new smartwatch as if it had anything to do with logistics. I kept waiting for Dad to clarify things, to tell me it was temporary. But that talk never came. Instead, Jason got a new office. Mine. They even repainted it. I found out when I walked in and nearly tripped over a stack of Amazon boxes filled with gaming chairs and LED lights. My nameplate was gone. Just like that. I wish I could say I snapped right then, that I stormed out or confronted them, but I didn't. I kept showing up early, stayed late, answered the questions Jason didn't even know to ask. I did the work because I loved the company, or maybe because I didn't know who I was without it. Then came the second blow, and this one hit harder. Jason lasted all of 6 days before making his first big mistake. He accidentally voided a long-standing contract with one of our oldest clients, Shannon Freight Lines, a family-run trucking business that had been with us since I was a teenager. They weren't our biggest client, but they were loyal. Every winter, when others paused due to weather, Shannon stuck with us. They trusted me. Jason had tried to optimize their routes using a third-party AI scheduler he found online. The system rerouted their trucks straight into a storm zone. 2 rigs slid off the road. One driver ended up in the hospital with a broken leg. Shannon called me, furious. When I checked, I found Jason had already emailed them a GIF of a guy shrugging with the caption, "My bad, we live and learn." I was mortified. I called Dad immediately. "Dad, this is bad," I said, pacing outside. "We might lose Shannon. Their driver's in the ER." "Jason," he replied with a GIF. There was silence on the line. Then Dad said, "He's learning. Cut him some slack." I laughed, stunned. "If I'd done that at 23, you'd have fired me." "You're not 23, he replied coolly. "You're 29. You should know how to manage around your brother's inexperience." That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't about opportunity. It was about making me carry him. In the following weeks, small changes crept in. Reports I used to review went straight to Jason. Clients I'd managed for years were reassigned to him. My email access got restricted. A technical issue, they said. Then I saw Jason's calendar. A meeting titled Quarterly Update with Lead Operator. That was my title. I finally confronted Dad at lunch. We were at our usual Greek place, but the warmth was gone. "Am I being phased out?" I asked. He didn't even flinch. "Not phased out, just repositioned." "That's corporate talk for replaced," I said. "Derek, don't be dramatic. You're still part of the vision. Jason just brings a modern perspective. He's young. He understands tech. The investors like that. But he doesn't understand the business," I argued. "He's treating it like a social media project." Dad sighed. "You've had your time. Maybe it's time to let someone else take a shot." That word, had, like I was already history. I left lunch early. That night I stayed late at the office, walking through the halls in the dark. Every corner felt familiar. Desks, whiteboards, conference chairs, still warm from the day's debates. My fingerprints were everywhere. And yet, I felt like a stranger. 3 days later, I walked into the office and saw my team gathered around Jason He was passing out cupcakes. "Promotion cupcakes," he announced. "Dad made it official. I'm now head of operations." The room went silent when they saw me. Someone stepped aside, unsure what to do. I stared at Jason. "What?" "Oh yeah," he said casually. "Dad meant to tell you. It was kind of last minute. But yeah, I'm officially running ops now." I turned and walked straight to my father's office. He looked up from his laptop, unsurprised. "You made him head of operations?" I asked quietly. "You couldn't even say it to my face?" "It was going to happen eventually," he said, closing his laptop. "Better to rip the bandage." "You don't rip off a bandage when someone's still bleeding," I replied. "You patch them up first." "This is a business decision," he said. "No," I countered. "It's a family decision disguised as a business one." He stood. "Derek, if this is about titles or ego, it's about respect," I cut in. "He's never worked a night shift, never missed sleep over a late shipment, doesn't even know what net 30 terms mean." Dad's expression hardened. "You don't question my decisions. This is my company. You work here because I let you." And there it was, 7 years of loyalty reduced to a favor. Then let me make it easier, I said. I quit. He raised an eyebrow. You're serious? You said I had my time. Fine. Enjoy the future. No shouting, no slam doors. Just silence as I walked out. That night, I didn't sleep. My phone buzzed nonstop. Coworkers confused, friends checking in. Jason sending me a meme of someone waving goodbye with the caption, "Don't let the door hit you." I didn't reply. I just stared at the ceiling until sunrise, wondering who I was now. Because when you've been underestimated, dismissed, or written off, people stop paying attention. They assume you're done. And that's when you plan your next move. The next morning was quiet. No meetings, no calls. No Jason blasting lo-fi beats from my old office. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a cold cup of coffee and an untouched breakfast sandwich. The silence felt heavy. 7 years of non-stop work, and now, nothing. I was unemployed, turning 30 soon, with no plan. I wish I could say I woke up motivated, ready to rebuild, but I didn't. I spiraled. That first week was a blur of Netflix, takeout, and ignored messages. My apartment felt less like home and more like a cell. I kept replaying that last conversation with my dad. You work here because I let you. Like everything I'd done had been meaningless. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was losing my sense of self. For years, I was that company. People respected me, trusted my judgment. Now, I was just another guy in sweatpants, watching cooking shows I didn't even like. And somewhere in that office, Jason was probably sitting at my desk, feet up, acting like he'd earned it. But slowly, painfully slowly, something changed. It started with a text from Marcus, our head of fleet maintenance. 5 simple words. You didn't deserve that, man. That one message cracked something open. Over the next few days, more came in. Rita from accounting, Kim from customer support, even a couple of dispatchers. All said the same thing. The company didn't feel right. Things were slipping. Jason was outsourcing basic tasks. Morale was dropping, and people were losing faith. At first, I didn't know what to do with that information. I wasn't going to beg for my job back. But deep down, something new was forming, quieter than anger, sharper, more focused. If they wouldn't let me sit at their table, I'd build my own. The idea arrived at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was awake, scrolling job boards, when an ad for a freight brokerage training program popped up. I didn't need the course. I could teach it, but it planted a seed. What if I didn't try to join another? It made sense. I knew logistics inside and out. Where systems failed, which clients were overcharged, which drivers were underpaid, who felt ignored, and who might follow me if I offered better service. I didn't need a warehouse, at least not at first. All I needed was a laptop, a phone, and a plan. That night, I opened a blank document titled Phase 1 and started making quiet calls. I wasn't trying to poach anyone. Not yet. I was just checking what people needed. I called Shannon Freight Lines first. They hadn't renewed my dad's company after the storm. Marie Shannon picked up, strained and tired. "Derek, is that you?" she asked. I asked about the driver. He had a broken femur and a long recovery ahead. I told her I was working on something, nothing official. But if I built a smaller, more attentive operation, would she consider it? After a pause, she said, "You build it, Derek, and I'll be your first client." That was all I needed. I used my savings and a small loan from my college roommate Eric to register an LLC. I named it Forge Logistics. It felt right. I wasn't inheriting anything. I was forging something new. The first weeks were brutal. I worked from a folding table in my living room with no staff and no CRM, just spreadsheets, phone calls, and grit. I partnered with independent drivers I'd known for years, built a simple shipment tracking portal with open-source tools, and handled every invoice and client request myself. Exhausting, but mine. Starting over changes how people see you. Colleagues who once treated me as merely dependable started viewing me as an underdog, and underdogs attract support, especially when there's a shared grievance. Within 6 weeks, I had 4 clients, not massive accounts, but steady ones neglected under Jason's watch. One even forwarded an email where Jason had tried to use ChatGPT to write a shipment schedule and produced an incorrect routing. I saved the screenshot. It wasn't all wins. I missed a follow-up and nearly lost an account. My Wi-Fi once dropped during a Zoom pitch, forcing me to present from a Starbucks parking lot. Running your own business meant owning both successes and failures. The difference was that now I owned them. I wasn't a placeholder for someone else's heir. I was responsible for everything. A few weeks later, I saw Jason in public for the first time since I left. He was getting into a new Audi, adjusting his designer sunglasses, revving the engine. He looked like he'd won. I could have walked away, but instead, I sat in my car and wrote down a list. Weak systems, vendors mistreated, clients who left, drivers who'd been burned. I wasn't planning sabotage. The plan was to outwork and outlast them. While Jason polished his LinkedIn and posed at expos, I was in the trenches, rebuilding from the ground up. Every contract, every mile our drivers logged moved me closer to a reality I hadn't let myself imagine yet. A day when Jason would learn that respect isn't inherited, loyalty isn't automatic, and leadership can't be faked with cupcakes and job titles. By month 3, Forge Logistics wasn't just surviving, it was growing. 8 steady clients, 2 part-time virtual assistants, and a core group of independent drivers who preferred working with me. We weren't flashy, but we were dependable, fast, and transparent. No AI-generated schedules, no tone-deaf memes, no execs discussing synergy. While trucks sat idle, I had systems, discipline, and most importantly, trust. That's when my thinking shifted from survival to strategy. For the first 2 months after I left, I was focused on keeping Forge alive. Once things steadied, I started noticing cracks in the company I'd left. Whispers from former coworkers. Jason cutting corners, outsourcing tasks he didn't understand, hiring a social media manager before fixing tracking. A driver told me he'd fronted fuel money. Because Jason's team lacked the proper forms, the real turning point came 2 weeks later over lunch with Rita from accounting. Smart, reliable, one of the few I still trusted. She'd kept in touch but wasn't taking sides, until she showed up at the ramen place looking wiped out. "Things are bad," she said. "Really bad." 2 major contracts had been lost that week, Birchwood Construction among them. Jason had promised a fleet upgrade he couldn't deliver, and Birchwood pulled everything, about 30 to 40% of Q2 revenue when you include inbound materials. When I asked who he blamed, Rita answered flatly, me. She said he doctored emails I'd sent warning about budget allocation, forwarded altered messages to Dad, and Dad believed him, or pretended to. It clicked. They weren't just inexperienced, they were desperate. That night, I sat with a spreadsheet. Not financials, but a map of people, patterns, and pressure points. I decided it was time to stop surviving and to act, but carefully. If I was going to challenge the empire that threw me away, It would be methodical, not emotional. I already had a network of former clients, old coworkers, and vendors frustrated with Jason's influencer energy. What I needed now was information, leverage beyond complaints. I decided to contact Marco. He had been the company's lead systems administrator for more than 10 years. A quiet man, always in the same gray hoodie, dependable but severely underpaid and overlooked by the new management. I had always treated him with respect, brought him coffee during long nights of system maintenance, and sat through countless security updates with him. We weren't close friends, but there was mutual trust. We met at a low-lit bar one Thursday evening, the kind of place with music too soft and drinks too strong. "I heard you've started your own company," he said, sipping his whiskey. "I have," I replied. "And I hear you're managing Jason's tech meltdowns." Marco smirked. "That man thinks HTML is a kind of cloud storage." We both laughed. Then I leaned forward. "I need your help," I said quietly. "Nothing illegal, but if you happen to know of any system gaps, backups of deleted files, or maybe internal audit logs from the last quarter." He raised an eyebrow. "Hypothetically," I added. He didn't agree verbally, but 3 days later, a secure zip file landed in my inbox titled Lunch Me Notes. Inside were gold, exported email threads, transaction records, client messages, covered-up errors, broken promises, and even an audio clip of Jason mocking a client as a boomer with trucker brain for questioning his modernization ideas. I didn't act on it right away. That wasn't the goal. The goal was control. The next phase was outreach. I began reconnecting with people. Quiet coffees, dinner meetups, casual parking lot chats. No hard sell, just honest conversation. "If you ever want a different kind of service, let me know," I'd say. Some were curious. A few already knew about Forge. But the turning point came unexpectedly, through a woman named Liana Vargas. Liana was the procurement head at a mid-sized agricultural supply chain I'd worked with before. Direct, sharp, and allergic to corporate nonsense. We'd once clashed over a delayed shipment, but we'd resolved it professionally, earning mutual respect. She called me out of the blue. "Heard you're not dead," she said. "Not yet," I replied, trying to stay that way. "I've got a problem," she said. "Your brother promised a 3-day turnaround for livestock feed deliveries. It took 6. Then he said we should adjust our expectations because he's shifting the paradigm." "What does that even mean?" "It means he's drowning," I said, "and calling it innovation." She laughed. Then, without hesitation, "Send me your rates. If you can guarantee under 5 days, you've got our business." That was the break I needed. I gave everything to that account. Every delivery on time, daily progress updates, personalized follow-ups. Liana was impressed, and she had influence. Within 2 weeks, 3 of her industry contacts reached out, all frustrated with Jason's empty promises. Word began to spread. Jason didn't notice, too busy posting motivational quotes on LinkedIn and organizing ping-pong tournaments. But Dad noticed. He called me one evening. "Derek," he said cautiously, "I hear you're working with some of our clients." "They're not your clients," I said evenly. "They're clients. They go where service exists." "This isn't a game," he warned. "You're burning bridges." "No," I replied. "You burned them when you chose slogans and hoodies over someone who built your foundation." He sighed. "I never wanted this." "Then you shouldn't have lit the match," I said, and hung up. After that, I accelerated. I built a new client portal, hired another assistant, paid my drivers above market rate, and treated them like partners, not replaceable parts. The final phase was visibility. I contacted a local business podcast that owed me a favor from a guest appearance 2 years ago. I pitched them a story, the son who walked away from the family business to build a better one. They loved it. We recorded the episode in one take. I didn't name names or criticize anyone. I just spoke about how loyalty can be one-sided, how leadership is earned, and how vision means nothing without execution. The episode dropped a week later. By Monday, I had 60 new client inquiries. Jason's company reported its worst quarter in 5 years. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Everything so far, the planning, growth, leverage, was just setup. The real move was personal. It happened on a Tuesday, deliberate timing, right before their quarterly review meeting. The same kind of meeting Jason once forgot to schedule and blamed on his email filter. It had been 6 months since I left that office, with nothing but pride and a hollow silence in my chest. 6 months rebuilding from the ground up, watching Jason flounder while Dad pretended nothing was wrong. Now, things were different. Forge Logistics wasn't an underdog anymore. We had 20 clients, a warehouse lease underway, 2 small fleets under contract, dispatchers, planners, and a solid reputation. We didn't need ads. Our results spoke for themselves. Meanwhile, Dad's company was crumbling. Half their long-term contracts gone, investors pulling out, driver retention at an all-time low, and finances in disarray. They were vulnerable, but I didn't want to destroy them, not openly. I wanted something more meaningful. So, I invited Dad to lunch. He was surprised to hear from me. "Didn't expect this," he said as we sat down at our old Greek restaurant, the same place where he once told me my time was over. "Figured we should talk," I said casually. He nodded. "Jason's been adapting." I just smiled. "I heard about Forge," he said finally. "You're doing well." "Better than well," I replied. "We're expanding." He shifted uncomfortably, realizing I wasn't there to reminisce. "I wanted to offer you something," I said. "A way out." "Your mess," I said plainly. "You've lost over $1.2 million this quarter. Investors are nervous. Staff turnover is high. Jason's not a leader. He's a liability." He stayed silent, jaw tight. "I'm offering to buy out 2 of your biggest remaining accounts. They've already approached me, just waiting to see how clean the transition would be." "A way out of what?" "I'll make it painless, even generous. You can use the funds to restructure." "You're trying to gut us," he said quietly. "No," I said. "If I wanted that, I'd let Jason keep running it." We sat in silence. For the first time, I saw something new in his face. Fear. But pride still held him. "I'll talk to Jason," he said finally. "We'll consider it." I nodded, but I already knew he wouldn't. So I prepared for the final step. It started with the leak. I sent Marco's files, the email chains, transaction logs, and recordings to one of their remaining investors. Not anonymously. I signed my name and attached a letter explaining my concerns. Mismanagement, negligence, and ethical red flags threatening both financial and legal stability. The investor replied within hours. "Thank you for your transparency. We're launching an internal audit immediately." Within a day, 3 senior staff members resigned. Jason posted a vague LinkedIn update about restructuring with purpose. A week later, 2 more clients left. Both joined Forge. Then came the board meeting. I wasn't invited, but Rita was. Her text arrived that night. "He's out." Board voted 4-1 to remove Jason from operations. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was shocked, but because of that one vote. Dad's. He'd gone down with the ship. 3 days later, Jason stormed into my office, face red with frustration. My team froze mid-call. I calmly walked him into the hallway and closed the glass door. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "You think this is yours now?" "I don't have to think it," I said. "I built it. You tried to play founder and collapsed in 6 months. That's not winning or losing. That's reality. You sabotaged me." "No," I said quietly. "You sabotaged yourself. I just stopped saving you." He opened his mouth to argue, but I walked away, leaving him in silence. The fallout came fast. The audit findings became public. Investors sued for misrepresentation. Clients demanded refunds. Vendors withdrew. Dad tried to regain control, but it was too late. Within 3 months, the company shut down quietly. No press release, no farewell statement, just disappearance. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post online or boast. That was never the goal. The goal was clarity, freedom. One evening, I sat in my new office. A real one this time, not a folding table. Outside, my team laughed and shared snacks. The whiteboard was full of expansion ideas and client names I'd earned. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Dad. I didn't know how to let go. "You were right. I just wasn't ready to admit it." I looked at it for a moment, set the phone down, and smiled. Because I wasn't chasing his approval anymore. He had his legacy. Now I had mine. And I built it from nothing. That was the real victory. And I never looked back.